MegaDad's Checkpoint is a mature-rated podcast for mega grown-ups only and brought to you despite childhood illness. Because you can't spell Christmas without Christ. Hello everyone and welcome to MegaDad's Checkpoint, the checkingest point on the megadads.org website. And now you can see why it's been so long since we've done the show, because that was as good a joke as I could come up with in several months. But it was like, we got to put out something. I can't wait till I actually say something funny. So here we are. But yes, we are back.
Easing back into it.
We're easing back into it with some terrible, terrible jokes. So that is the newest MegaDad Chris. How's it going?
Hi, hello. It's going well.
And so this is your first time. It's also it's also the first time of our special guest Ryan Blaha. He is a game developer here in the Twin Cities area, indie developer from CrunchBox Studios or CrunchBox Games. I feel like I got to make sure that's right, because we don't want to talk about CrunchBox Studios. We don't ask what they do.
Yeah, there's not a lot of ambiguity with that name yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so you got a game in development right now, Emery?
We have had Emery shown at 2DCon a few times in the last few years. We've shown a couple other games that aren't really quite as far along, but are kind of in the stable. So, we got a lot of cool stuff to show. And
Ryan told me before the show that he just got out of a game development meeting. So, and we're fairly late in the evening as we record this. So that should tell you the level of dedication that this man has for game development.
Yeah, we love video games. If you hear me panting, that would be why. A lot of talking.
Thanks for that heads up that you might just be panting during the show, and we were properly warned.
Hopefully not, but just a heads up.
Well, before the show really begins in earnest, we have the big question. The big question is an unknown to everyone, often including me before the show starts. But in this case, so we're recording this. It is the Christmas season, approaching the time of year where not only are a lot of great games now available to play, but the stuff coming out and people are looking ahead toward the next year, and just there's a lot of anticipation around the gaming world right now. So the big question I'm going to say right now is, what is the one game, if it ends up being like, if all you get for Christmas, if Santa just brings you one thing and it's a game, what do you think is going to be able to carry you? And it doesn't even have to be out yet. I'll just say that. It has to be out in the next year or so, because Santa's got a time machine. We all know this. What game do you think is going to last you all of 2024? And we're going to start with MegaDad Chris on this one.
Oh boy, that's tough. Gonna last me the whole time, huh? As somebody who plays a lot of single-player games, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. Like I try to churn through games as quickly as I can. The whole idea of having one game for an entire year, I'm sweaty now. I
mean, there's a bit of a monkey's paw element to this question, so I understand that.
Yeah, boy. I mean, the thing that has to pop into mind first, the thing that I am most looking forward to, I'll have to wait till February, but it's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That and that's a longer RPG, so that's probably the best answer you're gonna get from me. Yeah.
Remind me, I played a little bit of the first one.
Okay.
And I played a little bit of the first remake, and then I'm like, I'm gonna wait till this is done, because I'm going to be annoyed, because I don't like waiting for things. And so is this third one, like, where does that's not the last of this remake cycle? Is that correct?
No, this is the second one, actually.
This is the second one.
Yes, so they had Final Fantasy VII Remake that came out that covers, they say, like, the first third of the game. That's not true. That's not how it's going to work out.
No.
It covers basically the part of the game that, if you're familiar with Final Fantasy VII, it's where you leave Midgar. which is really just the tiniest fraction of the game, but it makes up for what is a very solid opening, and they added a lot of stuff to it. Some would say they added some things they didn't need to add to kind of pad it out, but then they came out with a DLC called Integrate, introduced us to another character, and now they are rolling out Rebirth, which is the second part of the remake. They've not announced the third part yet. They have stated though that it is going to be a trilogy.
Okay.
So
I think I was counting
should be-
Integrate as the second part, so I think that's probably why I was thinking it was the third part.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, and that piggybacked off of the first game, did a little bit more setup for getting out of Midgar, and then introduced Yuffie, one of the primary characters that you'll probably be playing as going forward.
And I have complained about the Final Fantasy remake at length on this show, so I won't rehash that right now. But I'm waiting for the game of the year where it's just all one big 600-hour thing. And I will only buy it on disc. So if it comes in 400 Blu-rays, just send me a crate. That's fine.
I like it. If we're lucky, physical media will exist still at that point. We're still a ways away from that. I don't know.
There is that. I suppose I hadn't thought of that. Ryan, what about you?
Yeah.
I would love it if Santa could bring the matchmaking back to reasonable levels in Apex Legends.
Okay, Santa's not a miracle worker here. Come on.
Man, I would like to think he is. Just head over to Respawn and knock some heads or something. I don't know, man. It's been my main multiplayer game for like 3 years, and now I practically have to take shots before I even sign into the lobby because every single game is just the grand finals. So
it actually sounds like more fun.
It's fun when you are like wired in and ready to go, but if you're looking to just kind of chill, you're gonna be eating dirt. So
that's the problem. You're getting paired up with people either like way above your skill level, or is that the issue? I'm not that sounds like I'm making fun of you, but I'm not. I'm just stupid.
No. It's a valid question, and it's like a whole like rabbit hole of conversations on what is good matchmaking. But
sure.
I think the community at large is kind of agreeing that it just keeps trending towards because I think it started when they tried to like cordon off special matchmaking for like newer players for like the entry level. And so consequently anybody who's played the game for more than X number of hours is kind of lumped into a different pen, and it's very top heavy. We'll just put it that way. So if you're not ready to go, you're probably going to get killed before you have much of a chance. But it's kind of a Pandora's box because it's like all these conversations on what makes good matchmaking, but I don't know how much time you got for me to dig into that right now.
Maybe we'll make that like a special feature on this episode. We'll have the 4-hour GDC talk about matchmaking.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, what I can say is that for somebody who really doesn't play multiplayer games, I do know for a fact that everybody hates skill-based matchmaking. So that's my contribution there.
Yeah, I could dig into the why a little bit more, but I'll wait for an invitation on that one.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm also 99% single player. So it's and skill-based matchmaking is. I understand the idea, but I know that I would never get out of the kiddie pool. So having a time element added to that just makes it like, okay, there's just going to be a point I'm never going to play again. So it sounds like we're kind of in the same boat, although you're probably a lot better than I would be.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I actually do kind of gravitate towards single-player games more nowadays myself, but I just keep I keep the shooting game channel open. I grew up in Call of Duty and all that stuff, so I have my one kind of competitive side squeeze, but I do like to explore a lot of the single player as well. So yeah.
Would it and feel free to tell me that you can't tell me, but is CrunchBox thinking about doing multiplayer stuff? Have you played with the development side of multiplayer very much there?
We do have support built into pretty much all of our games for local multiplayer. Online multiplayer, it's a significant degree of complexity added, just because you have to have, you have to make sure everybody's computer is in the same place, like the game looks exactly the same across a network, and that's a whole extra layer of complexity for sure. So we don't do online yet, but we embrace local multiplayer pretty much at the forefront. Look forward to multiplayer on the couch.
We like that. I just like anything couch based, honestly, but that's just me. I think my answer will probably end up being Baldur's Gate 3, although I haven't dipped into it yet, mostly because I like to see my wife and kids. And I know that the hard part with Baldur's Gate 3 for me is it's so talked about, especially on like Reddit and some of these other things. There's so much discussion that goes on, and so much, talking about builds and playthroughs and all this stuff. And I am a guy that almost never repeats a game, so I'm gonna go into this game playing it just the one time for the most part, and that is, I'm just going to assume the story as it is laid out is how it works. Is like this is the story they meant to tell. Because I don't want to know that there are other paths and things like that. But there's been so much discussion about all of the different ramifications of different choices and all this stuff. I worry that I'm just going to be so gun shy to do anything that I worry it's going to be too psychologically complex for me. And then I'll just end up crying during most of it.
I think that's valid. I think you'll be fine. I think
you don't know me very well. That's that's
well, maybe. I feel like I'm kind of similar to you in that regard, but I definitely find myself gravitating towards just kind of letting it fly, based on what you're feeling. And eventually, after a few decisions, I think you'll kind of embrace what you're going after. I could see why that's tough, but I think the player agency is definitely a huge part of the craze there. I don't know. I think you'll have fun with it. I think you'll be like, I think what would be most impressive, or what's most impressive to most people, is just how incredible the player agency really is. Mm-hmm. Like, you can do anything you can think of. Yeah, and I'm excited. There's so much about that game that kind of ticks my boxes. I like the fact that it's not an indie developer so much, but definitely not a AAA one, at least up until this game came out, I would say. And it's got amazing voice acting, and it's got all of these things that I really love. I'm also in that mode where anytime something is like super talked about, I'm always much more hesitant to get into it because I'm broken psychologically. I worry that I'm not gonna react the same way that other people do, and so it's like, am I playing this wrong, or am I missing something? Like, it's just it adds an extra layer. It's kind of like it's not spoilers, but it's kind of the same thing, where it's just like you end up more waiting for the moments you've been hearing about for months. But
you're actually doing an amazing job of explaining my experience with that game.
Really? Okay.
Just, yeah. And I hesitate to even say that because I don't want it to tarnish your experience. I do think it's an amazing game. But I'm somebody who doesn't necessarily care for the CRPGs. The only one that I've ever liked or I've ever loved is Disco Elysium.
Okay.
But you throw any of Larian's other work at me, or Pillars of Eternity or anything like that. I've tried them, desperately wanting to love them, and I don't. And I thought Baldur's Gate 3 might be the thing that like pushes me over, and I actually did have a pretty good time with it for a while, but in my case it's the combat that holds me back. But I will say, to maybe help you, it was also probably one of the first times where I felt like I'm the same kind of player as you, where I feel like there's a right way and a wrong way to play every game. I didn't feel that as much in this game. I really didn't feel that drive to be like, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right call here? I just kind of was like, let's just do it, see what happens. and usually something cool happened. And yeah, there might have been, you know, repercussions that I had to deal with, but those were fun to deal with. So nothing that I did decision-wise in the game, I felt like really left a sour taste in my mouth. It was just the elements of those games that usually turn me off. That just it did the same thing here. So, but your explaining that was like, I think you just said exactly what I was wanting to say, but couldn't say about my experience with the game. I'm not playing it anymore, but I did put about 20 to 30 hours into it.
And I would say, Chris, you said that rather eloquently too, where it's really surprisingly easy to kind of roll with the ramifications of how things play out, which makes it easier to just keep playing. But if you're concerned that this is a game, if you're not sure if it's a game that you would like, I think Baldur's Gate 3 is definitely one of those games where anyone who plays it can see the brilliance of it, even if it's not for them. I think it's one of those kinds of games where you appreciate the art that it is, even if you don't feel like sticking around for 150 hours, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Baldur's Gate 3, that's another thing I could talk about for a long time.
I've also never let me enjoying the process interfere with whether I like something or not. So it's like I can have the worst time in the world and then finish it and be like, this was amazing. Like that, like I understand, like this was so cool what they did, but I was a mess. I kind of feel the same way with like Last of Us, where it's like I didn't enjoy what happened in the story and the gameplay and all. Like there was very little that I really enjoyed doing, but I loved being done with it, if that makes any sense. I can appreciate what they did, and I know, and it's not even like it's not for me or anything like that. It was more just like I'm openly. It's like watching a sad movie. It's just like I'm not happy while this is going on, but I'm enjoying it from a logical level, if that makes any sense. So I don't know.
I think it's.
Yeah,
it speaks to your maturity as a gamer.
Never call me mature.
There's too many people out.
How dare you? How dare you?
Well, I'm going to, and I stand by it. There's just too many people that think games need to be made specifically for them, and that's a difficult thing for a lot of people.
Let's get into games that we're playing right now. In fact, and there's a bunch. We're kind of all over the place, which I kind of dig. Even in the last few months, I haven't played very much, and the two are not unrelated. The two concepts are not unrelated, but you guys have apparently been very busy, and a bunch of you are playing games that I really want to play. And we're gonna start with Ryan here, because you're actually replaying a game that I bounced off of pretty hard when it originally came out. Despite that, I love the kind of game it is, but that's GTA
yeah,
4.
for sure. I mean, I could start by saying I've totally drank the Kool-Aid on all the GTA 6 hype that came out recently, and it's
Yes.
definitely been inspiring me to play not just GTA 4, but kind of all of Rockstar's recent games. Like I definitely consider the first Red Dead Redemption one of my all-time favorites too. So, just kind of trying to get back to that universe because those games are 15 years old already. I don't remember them super well, and it's made by Rockstar, so it holds up. It hasn't aged perfectly gracefully, but it's still a pretty good game even in 2023. So, I've been really impressed by how well a lot of the mechanics have held up. The visuals are definitely dated, but they still look good enough that you feel like you're a little crass if you complain about them because you know how old they are. But there are definitely times where you still feel like, wow, Liberty City still looks good especially at night when everything's illuminated. You definitely can tell that it was from that late 2000s era of grungy, grimy color palettes and the early days of water physics and stuff like that. So that's kind of a fun throwback. But I mean, the story still ages well. The voice acting is, it's not 2023 quality, but it's still good. A lot of the satire and the jokes that play over the radio stations have aged more or less pretty well. I mean, there's still some things that you can't really say or get away with anymore that were acceptable at the time that kind of show up, so you get a little bit of a shock when you hear things where you're like, ooh, that wouldn't fly anymore. But I mean, a lot of the satire and stuff has almost aged well given the way things have gone socially the last few years. So it's been kind of fun seeing it's almost like opening a time capsule. You know what I mean? So, on top of just being a game that has held up over the years, it just feels like I'm revisiting some culture from, a decade and a half ago.
How much bowling have you done?
I played like 3 games. I indulged Michelle on the first date. I indulged
Okay.
Roman a time or two, and then I'm just like, I'm glad it's there, but I'm just gonna play the game.
That is fair. That is absolutely fair. And so it was just the GTA 6 kind of hype that caused you to revisit this?
That's
Is that
definitely
what it is?
part of it. A good part of it, probably most of it. I would say I just said the first Red Dead Redemption was one of my favorite games, but talking about games that I just totally bounced off of, Red Dead Redemption 2, I totally bounced off of that one, so I'm hoping to try to dig into that one next. But I'm really just trying to. I feel like as I've gotten older, I've been able to appreciate the incredible pieces of work that Rockstar games are. I mean, we're talking about huge, sprawling open worlds that look, top of the class in video games and have mature storytelling and a lot of great voice acting. Like all the things that you love about Baldur's Gate has, Rockstar's been doing for over a decade already. So, I think I feel like, and as a game developer, somebody who has at least a little bit of an idea of what it takes to make these video games, you're just kind of just in awe at the scale of these games too. So I don't know. I just think they're impressive for a number of reasons.
Well, you don't think 12 people in CrunchBox Games could put out a GTA
if you give us enough
level
time,
game?
Eventually.
and money.
We'll see you in 20 years.
Right.
Yes, and money. You're also doing another kind of small indie game, Lego Fortnite.
I was surprised by this one. I mean, it's kind of stealth launched along with Fortnite's other modes. And it's actually more like Minecraft than it's like Fortnite. So it's kind of got the early creative survival elements that you might remember if you ever got onto the early days of Minecraft. It's not a complete game. It's definitely missing a lot of like the quality of life stuff, and there isn't a great variety of biomes or animals or anything like that. But it's got a really strong core with all of Fortnite's building technology. If you remember from all the towers and crazy stuff you could build on a whim in Fortnite, well, that's all here, but with Legos. And I'm actually a huge Lego guy, so this just kind of checks all the right boxes for me. It's been kind of a fun, creative game. My wife enjoys it. She and I have played through Stardew Valley like 5 times already, so this is kind of a new game for us to kind of play together. They have actually dedicated servers already, so I don't even have to be online for my wife or my friends to join and just play in the world that we build. So that's been really cool. It's a native functionality, right? Like it just works. I don't have to do anything to set that up. I just have to say, yes, this person is allowed in my world when I'm offline, and it works. So I would love to see more AAA games, especially, adopt that kind of functionality. I know that like server costs and stuff are like why that isn't standard, but I would love to see more of that in the future too. It's easy to play, and that's part of the appeal, but it's got a long way to go before it's as deep as other modern survival games, crafting games, etc. But it's got a really strong foundation for sure.
Is it pure? Okay, so this is very coincidental. I loaded up Fortnite for the first time tonight before we started, and it's the first time I played Fortnite in about 4 years. I don't know why, but I don't know what I wanted to try the Rocket League racing thing, and that was cool. That was fine, but is Lego Fortnite specifically just creative based? Does it have like is it a battle royale, or what is it? Is it a completely separate mode?
It's a completely separate mode. Yep. So it's actually more like Minecraft. I actually catch myself calling it Lego Minecraft, even though it is Lego Fortnite. So they do have survival mode, which is the original Minecraft, where you have to like grow crops, farm animals, get food, make sure you're fed, and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of fun, but kind of a nuisance. But they do already have creative mode out of the box, so if you just want to like load in and put stuff wherever you want and make towers and stuff, they already have that too. So like I said, the foundation of what's on offer on day one is pretty impressive, even though after a couple hours it becomes pretty evident that there's still a lot of things that need to come. But really strong day one.
That is amazing news. My son has been like, he wants to play Fortnite. He's 5.5, and I'm like, not yet, not yet. But
yeah, right.
Hearing that and his love for Minecraft, I'm like, okay, well, maybe. All right, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So I'm so glad that you shared that, because I was just assuming it was Fortnite with Lego characters shooting each other.
Yeah, right. It's really cool. And before, on top of everything I've already said, I think what Fortnite just did by dropping 3 separate games on top of their original Battle Royale into one big ecosystem is unbelievable. I think you're going to see, maybe a handful of other big name players in the industry churn through a lot of cash and a lot of man hours to try to replicate what they just did. Creating multiple different kinds of games that are all on the same platform, like that's a big deal. I think we'll see people try to make more of that for sure.
I'm always fascinated with the Fortnite story, and I kind of wish NoClip was still kind of a thing. I mean, I know it's in this weird position right now, but I want to know that Fortnite story, because I remember when that launched, and it was such an also ran for so long, and then all just slowly build up, and it ended up becoming this massive media juggernaut that it is now. It's really, and it's not like, that's an indie studio or anything like that, but it's just fascinating how many people wrote off Fortnite when it first came in, and just be like, this is, it's not PUBG. Why are people trying to mimic PUBG? And when was the last time you thought about PUBG?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember being one of those day one Fortnite players too, and it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But credit to them for finding an opportunity to pivot and then really leaning into it, right? Like, that doesn't just happen on accident. But definitely one of the best like success stories of like a fast pivot that there is out there.
Yeah, I mean, people forget, like, Fortnite didn't start as a battle royale. That was a side mode that really was just kind of a thing that was there, but they were focusing on, I can't even remember the original state of Fortnite, what that was called.
Save the world.
So it's
like a weird mission based game. It didn't land, obviously, but like the tech was strong enough that they found that they could just do something else with it, and the rest is history, right?
Right.
All right, now we're, like we mentioned, we're in the Christmas New Year's time frame, and we didn't do a Halloween show this year, which was sad, but just didn't end up happening. But one of us is playing a horror game, and it's not me trying to play online with people. It's an actual horror game. Chris, you're doing Layers of Fear.
I am, yes.
Now this is an older game, another older game, right?
Well, that's what's confusing about it. This one is actually the one that came out this year. So there's Layers of Fear, there was Layers of Fear 2, and then there's this game, which is also called Layers of Fear. But what it is it's a remake, remaster, restructuring of the first 2 Layers of Fear games. And it's built in Unreal Engine 5. I should just say Unreal Engine. I can't confirm whether or not it's 5. But what it does is it kind of remixes the story of the first 2 games, adds some things, and changes some of the elements around. I'm a big Layers of Fear fan. I'm a big horror game fan in general. But it has that kind of PT kind of approach where it's first person, photorealistic graphics and things like that. But the thing with Layers of Fear, the original game, specifically that kind of captured me so much, was what it did when you weren't looking at things. It was the first game where there's tons of hallways, you're moving around, moving through these places, you're hitting dead ends, you're turning around, and the entire environment changes on you. And it does that to good effect. So that's like what hooked me in originally. And I had wanted to play the new game, this reimagining. Mainly because I also wanted to kind of just revisit it as Bloober team is the developer. They're working on the Silent Hill 2 remake. But I wanted to see what they were able to do with something that was built for this current gen, and I've been enjoying it. I've liked it a lot. If you like first person horror, atmospheric stuff, I think it has kind of a slow start. It's not a super long start, but it does have a slow ramp up, and then it gets really good. It tells the story of a painter, and in this case, it tells the story of a writer, and you're kind of the painter was from the original game, and the writer was from the second game, but now it kind of jumps back and forth. I'm still relatively early. I think I'm only maybe not quite even a third of the way into it yet, but I can tell what it's trying to do now, and I'm kind of excited to see how it brings the two games together.
I think they should just call all of the games Layers of Fear. Never differentiate which. I think we need to amp the horror and the confusion. We need to make this a metagame in and of itself, where no one knows which game you're talking about, and everyone just kind of assumes they're talking about one particular game without ever connecting the dots. Kind of like how in the Clue movie there's multiple endings, and when they showed it in theaters, you only ever got one ending. Am I just Am I insane here?
Well, I mean, I think you're right. Commit to the bit. They're 2/3 of the way there.
Exactly.
They've got two games called Layers of Fear.
Exactly.
I mean, let's just get rid of that too on the second one. And call it good.
Yeah. Just call them all Layers of Fear, and let's just confuse more people. Frankly, I'm all in favor of that. You're also playing Lies of P, which I honest to God thought that was a Timothée Chalamet movie that I wasn't aware of for a long time.
I get it. Yeah, they are the spitting image of one another, eh?
They are. And now I want Timothée Chalamet to play Pinocchio.
It seems like it'd be a good fit. He's already playing Wonka.
Well, yeah, and he pretty much it's almost the same outfit. It just no hat.
That's true. That's a good point.
So how is Lies of P?
Yeah, and Lies of P I finished. Lies of P is up there as what I think it's my favorite non-FromSoft Souls game. And off the top of my head, the only game that I can think of that might be tied with it, or at least vying for that title, is a game that also came out this year that I also played and beat relatively recently, actually right before Lies of P, was Lords of the Fallen. The only problem with Lords of the Fallen is that it had some technical issues that cropped up about halfway through that made some parts of it ultra frustrating. So that held it back a little bit, but Lies of P was silky smooth all the way through. It tells an interesting story of Pinocchio and Geppetto, and it's not... I don't want to say it's not what I expected. Well, it's not what I expected. But when that game was first introduced, there was another game that had just come out, or was about to come out, called Steel Rising. And that was supposed to be a Souls-like as well. I think it was from the developer Spiders. I don't know if that's true or not. But it was from a developer that had tried this thing before, and their games have just always been ultra disappointing to me. Like they had like big lofty goals and aspirations, and it sounded good on paper, but in execution it was always, to me, kind of disappointing. And I looked at Lies of P and I'm like, that's exactly what this is going to end up being. But it had come out and I'd heard good things. I'd heard great things, and it was on Game Pass, which, it doesn't take much more convincing than that for me to at least try it. And I was absolutely hooked right in. So good. Such a good experience. The only thing, if anything, that held it back for me would be some of the environments that you are exploring. While different, they still kind of had this very samey, dark, damp feeling to it. And I get it; it's a dark game and it's macabre and all that. So I'm not expecting brilliant scenes of green and light and happy imagery and stuff like that. But it did kind of get to wear on me a little bit as the game went on. But that being said, every environment it showed was still stunning. The enemies were interesting. It when I first started, I thought it was primarily you're fighting robots or puppets, and I just have this weird thing against robots. I don't care to be fighting robots, and then it changed up from robots to something else, and it just kept checking all these boxes.
It sounds like you do have a thing for robots. If fighting them is you're so against it. Maybe
I want to save all robots. I didn't play the Horizon. I couldn't stand the Horizon games.
Yeah,
because I'm like,
I think you're just a robot.
These dinos are just doing their thing.
You're a sympathizer. I get it.
That's true.
I get it.
I never thought of it that way. That's my problem. I empathize too much with robots.
And in the coming AI apocalypse, your kind will be needed. So at least speak well of the rest of the MegaDads when that time comes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. When the uprising is here, yes. I will be their leader.
Thank you. That's all. Just put us in one of the nicer minds. That's fine. That's all I really ask.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Ryan, have you had a chance to play? Are you said that you are going more for the single player stuff. Have you done a lot of the FromSoft kind of games or the Souls-like games?
That's one of those games where it was like for a long time, I have friends who got caught up in the Dark Souls craze, and when I talked earlier about Baldur's Gate 3, where it's like you sit down and you play it and you're like, I can recognize why people love this, but I don't want to put the time in, kind of a thing. That was my stance for a long time. Elden Ring changed everything for me. I know me and my brother and one of our other friends just played so much of it in co-op, and from there I've kind of been going backwards through the FromSoft like Souls kind of line. Haven't gotten very far because obviously they're very demanding games, but I got Demon's Souls sitting here on my shelf waiting for me to open it up. So whenever there's time.
Going back to my answer from the beginning of the show, if not Baldur's Gate, it might be Elden Ring. I may finally pull the trigger on it.
Oh, you haven't played that yet?
I've not played it because I've had the same reaction to those games as you have. It's like, do I want to be like, I played Bloodborne for a while, and I kind of dug it, but I so often just got wrecked from a direction I wasn't expecting, or like just stuff that felt cheap, and so I kind of wrote off all those Souls-like games because like I don't want to put in the time to be good enough at these games to enjoy them.
Yeah, I think you're kind of like alluding to one of what I think is kind of an emerging, or at least in the last 5-10 years has become more popular, is games that demand that you actually get better at them, right? And I think that's kind of one of one of the things Baldur's Gate 3 does incredibly well is like you do have to take time to like learn how to be successful in this game. It's off-putting if you're not somebody who is inclined to do that, but it's also like exceedingly rewarding for the people that do, you know what I mean?
And I'm not afraid of getting better at a game, but it's more of the I have to still enjoy the process to get there.
Right. Yeah, and there's a time commitment level to it as well, right? So I mean, it's not for everybody, but like that's definitely something that I see, I think is more popular than it was 10-15 years ago.
Sure. I also don't want to have to look. I don't have to look stuff up, and I found that a lot of the Soulsborne games, it feels like you need like. The answer is always, well, just go look it up, or something like that. And it's just like, I don't want to have to do that.
Cheese. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I was actually just going to add one of the things, that I do, and this is not for everybody, and it sounds like it's specifically not for you, Evan, but guides are one of those things that made me appreciate Souls-like games so much more, because I also do not like backtracking. I do not like having to replay the same part over and over again, and that's kind of baked into these games, and it's going to happen regardless. You gotta do like boss recognition and stuff. But when I play with a guide, one of the things about these games, Souls-likes, well done Souls-like, the thing that sticks out to me more than almost anything is the level design, the way these games interconnect in ways you just don't see coming. I remember Bloodborne specifically. There's a spot probably like, I don't know, 20, 25 hours in. I'm not sure. I can't. It's been a while since I've played. But you're underground and you've been down here forever and you beat a boss and you find a ladder and you're climbing this ladder and you come up in it's basically like the graveyard where you started the game. So like after all of this exploration, after all this moving around, you find yourself back at the beginning, but you've made progress. It's not like you're restarting or anything. But that blew my mind in such a way that I was like, it's one of those things too, like you could miss it. You could miss these things. And I'm like, at that point, I'm like, I'm going to try to play these games with a guide if there's a guide available, because I want to see as much as the developer's trying to jam pack in here. I played that way with Elden Ring. I did play that way with Lies of P, Lords of the Fallen, and so many things that make those games special to me, I would have missed if I didn't play with a guide. Now, some people's experience playing a game with a guide, it's going to have a more detrimental effect. I'm thankfully not that way, and it's something that I use to actually help me get more out of the game.
Oh, I know. I can't count how many times I've played a game where I'll get stuck. I'll end up looking up something, and then over the course of looking it up, discover things I missed, or discover, ways that I didn't play optimally or something like that, and it will taint the whole experience. I've stopped playing games because it doesn't feel right anymore. And this is, anyone that listens to the show know that this is basically just therapy for me, the show. So this is more about my broken brain than anything. But yeah, it's I have that exact opposite experience where it's like if I have to look something up, inevitably it's going to kind of hurt. And so that's almost like why I always had this idea where I wanted to bring back the old Nintendo hint line. You know how like back in the 80s and early 90s you could call a number if you were stuck in a Nintendo game and they would walk you through it or whatever like that. It's like I want to be able to ask a question of something or of someone, like, where is this particular thing, and not have any risk of spoilers or any additional information. I just want just that specific thing, and the only way to do this with a person or maybe AI. Again, we're bringing it back to AI. So again, Chris, in your next pro AI meetings that you're going to, bring this up. That would be nice.
Yeah, I got you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Taking notes as we speak.
Perfect.
Yeah, I love that idea. That sounds great.
Yeah,
they should bring that back. I agree.
I think CrunchBox Games could be the leader in this. We need a CrunchBox line.
Yeah, opportunities there, I suppose.
There you go. Yeah, I'll volunteer. Just I'll just
what's your hourly rate?
I won't. I won't.
Wise, hit me up.
I won't tell anyone the correct answer, but it would. I'll still walk them through stuff. Now that I'm thinking about this might not be a good idea for me to be involved. So, okay, never mind. Moving on. So I want to talk about a couple of things real quick before we run out of time, because as always, this is we love talking, and we never get to any of the actual topics, but that's okay. I did literally an hour ago, or hour and a half ago, finish Super Mario RPG, the remake on Switch. I played it with my almost 3-year-old. Did a lot of reading. There was a lot of very silly dad voices as I was reading the dialogue, which was fun.
That's awesome.
And she really enjoyed it. And I don't think she understood 90% what was going on, but that's not the point. And I mean, there have been plenty of reviews. I mean, the game itself is obviously Super Nintendo era, so it's been around for a long time. It's very old school RPG. There's not a lot to talk about in terms of the gameplay. They did a little bit of tweaking and things like that, but it's not super interesting to talk about. At least for me, it was a great game. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it playing it in the Super Nintendo days, and I enjoyed it playing it again. It's a great old school RPG. But one thing I noticed was, so this is the first real solid Switch game I've played in a long time, and it's amazing how unwilling I am to engage with kind of off the beaten path stuff when there's no achievements. Like there's a whole lot of stuff in Super Mario RPGs there's these like little side quests and things like that, or like little hidden things in the world, and I found that because there's no, like, I don't want to say out of game reward, but that's kind of what it is. I found myself less interested to go really pursue that stuff. And I don't know if that's just me or what the deal is, but like I found, like I'm not going to talk about it at great length, but like I'm playing the Mad Max game on PlayStation right now, and there's a ton of random crap out there, but you get achievements for finding all of it. So it's like, okay, I'm going to do this because I love hearing the little bing, but with like Nintendo games, it's like it's weird. Like I found like I don't want to go look for this hidden fight. I don't care enough. But if there was an achievement, I would absolutely do it. And so I think there's something odd about that.
I find that relatable.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've thought that same thing on Switch. I've even played games that have like the game has achievements built in, and it'll have an achievement pop up on the Switch, and I'd be like,
sure,
yeah, I miss that. like
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is, and I played, so I've just got this, I don't know if it's a Switch Lite, I forget what they call it, but where it's just the portable. It's just the handheld. Yep. And I don't like, and I think this is part of the reason why I don't play a lot of handheld games and never did, is I like to take a lot of notes in games. And I find that I can't do that with handheld games because I'm almost never playing them in a situation where I can have a notebook handy. You know what I mean? Like I'm always playing it like on the bus or when I'm sitting on the couch watching TV with my family or something like that. You know, it's like I can't really write notes down. And there's a lot in Super Mario RPG where it's like, oh, you need to talk to this person and he's going to give you a clue that's not saved anywhere in the game. It's not like you can go look up in a journal or anything like that. So I really think like the Switch needs like a notepad feature. That you can just be like, okay, I'm going to leave a little note for myself on this because there's a lot of games I like that require a lot of notes, and you know I don't want to play that on a mobile setup.
You got to take advantage of the screenshots.
Maybe you're right. No, that's actually not a bad idea. I may have to take advantage of that. I feel like
the DS totally had that too.
I think they did. Yeah, I think you're right. But the big game I want to talk about is a game that kind of surprised me. I bought it in quotes. As part of the PS Plus probably a year ago now, and I'm kind of going through and kind of clearing the backlog, I just downloaded it kind of on a whim, and I ended up really digging it. It was called Paradise Killer, which was a game that came out in 2020, originally for Switch and Windows, but then it came out on the consoles last year. And it's a fascinating game. They dub it an open world murder mystery game, and that is what it is. You are a character that is. So I'll explain the world a little bit because it's worth talking about. So there is this group of immortal beings that are trying to bring back the old gods. And they do that by creating little pocket dimensions as an island and kidnapping mortals and loading them up on this island to create a perfect society. And if they feel like if they can create a perfect society, the old gods will come back and the peasants are joyous, blah, blah, blah. Inevitably, something happens with the island. Either the island itself falls apart, or there's corruption of demons in there, and they have to wipe out the island. So they do this mass sacrifice of all the mortals, and then they use that energy to build the next island. So you are a character whose name is Lady Love Dies, and she is brought out of exile to solve a murder mystery. Because the current island is about to go. They've already killed all the people. But right as the last kind of part of the ceremony to get rid of the island happens, a bunch of the syndicate members die. And so you are basically called out of exile to solve the murder. And so it in many ways it plays like an Ace Attorney game, where you're just going from NPC to NPC, and you're collecting evidence, and then you're going back to people and catching them in lies or finding contradictions or things like that. You're also going and investigating evidence and kind of putting together that part of it. So from that aspect, like the murder mystery part of it, it could be just a visual novel. It could be like an Ace Attorney game where it's just screen to screen. So there's no reason for the open world to be there. But there is all of these... The open world aspect comes into it in this kind of exploration of this island. And it's a fairly small environment, but there's a lot going on. And there's a lot to unlock. And there's a lot of, okay, you're slowly building up. You build up a little bit of skill and a little bit of story, and then that helps you get into this room, which gives you this key, which unlocks this other room. And so there's all those kind of adventure game elements to it. And so the open world, it's fun. It's not super engaging, but there's a lot of puzzles, and there's nothing about the murder mystery that needs the open world game, but there's a lot of like collection and things like that involve jumping puzzles and kind of finding routes and stuff like that. But what I really dig about this is it's got such a unique art style and such a unique kind of just style in general. So it's 3D open world, but all of the characters and objects in it are flat 2D. And they don't move. They're not animated in any way. So you're kind of walking up to all these cardboard cutouts of characters. And then
I was trying to think, as I gave this game a shot and I'd played it for a little bit, and I was about to say, does it have a unique style? Because there's something about that was like standing out to me. And as soon as you said that, I was like, oh my God, yes, that game. I now know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. And the art itself is really just flat out gorgeous, and it's very colorful, and the character design is really cool. There's a character whose job it is to basically be the last one off the island before it vanishes and they move to the next island, and his name is the Witness to the End. Like that's his, like all the characters have goofy names. So like I said, the main character is Lady Love Dies. There's a character, Witness to the End. There's there's all of these kind of weird little things. And it's funny that you brought up Disco Elysium earlier. I think it was Chris, because I feel like this is a really it'd be an interesting companion piece story-wise, because there's so much about both of those games that is about metaphysics and philosophy and all of this stuff kind of peppered throughout the story, that it's the writing is beyond the game that it is put in, if that makes any sense. You don't need to be having these conversations about religious fanaticism or all of this stuff in a essentially a, like I said, just an Ace Attorney game. I really enjoyed it. It is definitely like you mentioned, kind of not for everyone, but I think the mystery itself is really fascinating, and it as far as that part of it is concerned, it is one of the better ones I've ever played. I like these murder mystery games because they do a good job of, I don't know how many times I thought I had it figured out, and then they will whip a piece of evidence on you that, like, okay, this makes no sense, and you have to go back, and it's not like LA Noire where you can kind of read people's faces to see if they're lying. You have to think about the logic of everything, and you have to really kind of piece together what happened by talking to as many people as possible, and like that aspect is really cool, and I really enjoyed that part. So yeah, I dug the hell out of this game. I will probably end up 100%ing it. I think I got like 90% of it, and there's just like a few little collection things that I got to do. But it's a very weird game. And so I recommend it for people that like the Ace Attorney games, like Disco Elysium, and just kind of just weird crap. It's also got kind of like a Hotline Miami. It's got that kind of vibe a little bit to it in terms of like the color and the music and all of that stuff too. So it's there's a lot of bits of other games that I like in this game.
And it is played solely from the first person perspective.
Solely
right?
from first person. Okay. It is interestingly voice acted. They do the voice acting is good, but it's only done in like short sentences. Like it's not fully voiced. So you'll get like little like spoken sentences and things like that, but then there'll be a whole paragraph. But yeah, it's I dug the hell out of it, and I'm reading now that apparently there was an update this year that adds new quests, but just for the Windows version. Although that might be they just added ray tracing for the Windows version, so I don't really know what's going on. But either way, it's a super fun game, and if you like those kinds of mystery games, and I like the fact that at the end you can absolutely screw up accuse the wrong person and just have a complete botch of the whole situation. I enjoy any mystery game where you can do that and just to make a complete ass of yourself during trial. Like I said, I've also been playing Mad Max, which I think I'll talk about next time. That is a game that exists.
Mad Max is cool. That game did not get enough credit when it came out.
It didn't, but it also I don't want to get into the Grand Theft Auto thing, but like a lot of things that bug me about Grand Theft Auto, you mentioned Ryan about the radio and all of that. So Mad Max is like, we're not going to have radio, so there's just a long bit of driving with nothing to listen to. And it's like, I miss the radio so much.
That'd be hard, but I feel like the point of it is to like make you uncomfortable a little bit.
Oh yeah. But Mad Max himself, he's such an edgelord in that game. It just gets almost beyond parody at some point. Where it's just
I've definitely heard a lot of good things about that and Paradise Killer for sure. I mean, they seem like they're very different games from what's conventional. And it's kind of hard because it's hard to describe what's so great about them without actually playing them.
Yes, I will say if you are planning, especially with Paradise Killer, read nothing about it. In fact, delete what I just told you about it. Just pretend you never heard any of that, and go into it as blind as blind as possible. Because I went into it with no research. I got it because the art looks cool, and that was it. And even in like the first 10 minutes, it was like, this game is gonna be weird. I love it. So yeah, that's it for that.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. You made a compelling case for sure.
Well, thank you, sir. And because you complimented me, I'm gonna give you extra time to talk about CrunchBox Games.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. If it's interesting to you guys, I could certainly talk about what it's like to be a game developer in Minnesota. Obviously, Evan, you found me through an article I did with Twin Cities Geek, who found me through 2DCon. So there's a little bit of a, there's a little bit of a community that's here already, right? There's definitely a passionate scene here in Minneapolis for game development, but it's a little underground. I mean, there's not really anybody you've heard of before, right? There's no household names in this industry. And that kind of makes it a little hard, right? I mean, there's not a big support system for people who are trying to get upstart in this market. There's no major player in this industry that's in this area, right? There's no reputable like college programs really in this part of the country either. So if you're somebody who wants to make games and you're from Minnesota, you don't have a lot of options outside of moving to one of the coasts, right? So that's definitely been one of the challenges that I didn't anticipate when I got started, right? Because it's really easy for somebody who has programming skills to be really enamored by like the wild success stories of like Stardew Valley or some of those other viral indie hits, but then you get a few months into the project and reality starts to set in and you kind of don't know what to do with yourself a little bit, right? So there's a lot to unpack there about how we got to where we are, because obviously we're not a household name. We haven't even shipped a product yet, properly. So no one's really heard of us either, right? So the question of how do we break out or find success is still an ongoing one, but there's more opportunity than ever. The gaming is a growing industry, and trying to find your way to make a living out of it is theoretically never been easier, but You know, it's kind of a hit-driven industry, right? Like it's really top-heavy. Like, you know, the high earners kind of have some kind of gravitational pull, where you know, other players will play the games that other people are already playing because they want to see what all the hype is about, right? So, you know, if you're not one of those lucky ones who really like, you know, hits home and lands with their audience, it can be even harder still when other games in your adjacent area are hitting their audience and they're kind of pulling away from you a little bit. So, you know, there's a lot of risk involved, right? I mean, indie games, video games in general are considered pretty high risk investments because success in this industry is so unpredictable. Like, you could have a really good game with a lot of cool features and characters and all that stuff and still not get your money back because you just didn't land, right? So, you know, how we maximize our chances is kind of an ongoing conversation. It can look any number of ways. But, you know, that's why I'm really excited to be able to come and, you know, talk to people like you or Twin Cities Geek and kind of say, hey, look, we're doing some really cool stuff. We're right here in Minnesota, right? I don't think there are a lot of people in this area who think of video game development as a viable career path. Because like I said, there aren't really any opportunities here that anyone's really aware of. And how many people want to move to a coast, right? So, it's definitely a long conversation, but I think there's, you know, the scene's growing and we're having more and more serious conversations about how we do get those legs under us. And so, you know, we're always happy to try to find opportunities that can help us, you know, find some new heights.
So the big game, or the most complete game I think you've got in the process right now is this Emery game.
Yes.
Which is, it's a 2D platformer. You know, you mentioned Mario Brothers. You know, the pictures make it look a little bit more like what's the word I'm looking for? Meat Boy, Super Meat Boy.
Yeah.
And so but it looks cuter, which this is the only time I'm ever going to say anything's cuter than meat.
Yeah. As far as like gameplay goes, you know, I always say Super Mario Brothers is kind of our North Star. And what you'll find with indie games, especially in 2D platformers, is that they kind of gravitate towards one of two subgenres in most cases, right? You'll either go the Metroid Castlevania route of having a big map that you know, slowly, gradually earn more power-ups or collectibles or whatever that increase your ability to access other parts of this huge map, right? Or we go the precision platformer route of like Super Meat Boy or Celeste, where you know, you have micro levels, really small levels that, you know, fit on your screen basically, but they're really hard and you'll die a lot and then you'll go back to the beginning. And, you know, those have really hit home with a lot of people because even when you die, you're just right back in the action, and it's really easy to just keep going until you know, whatever compels you to put the controller down. And we don't really see ourselves in either of those subgenres. We deliberately are kind of going the modular route of Mario, where you have a level and then you go back to your hub world, and you don't have to worry about getting lost or remembering where you were. It's kind of casual in that regard, right? But we have a lot of depth for players who want a little bit more complexity in their game. So it's a little bit of a tightrope act, but you know, for me and my, you know, my tastes for 2D platforming in particular, I feel like this is right where we want to be, right? So Mario's our North Star, but we've found, you know, a handful of ways to make it our own game too. So you know, we're really excited to talk about what makes us different from the competitors, right?
You can wish list it on Steam right now.
Yes. Yep.
Which I just did. So there you go.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, if anyone is looking to support us at no cost to them, we have a Discord server that you can join, and you can talk to me or other members of the development team. And then we do love it when people wishlist us on Steam. Steam's discoverability algorithms, so they call, you know, are are fed into by how many wish lists you have, right? So if we can get however many wish lists, we'll get suggested in more places, right? So those are two easy ways at no cost to you to kind of help us out a little bit.
So I do have one quick question about Emery, and then Chris,
Sure.
go ahead. I'm always fascinated by this as someone that has dabbled in actually creating things and not just rambling about them on the internet. How many times over the course of this development have you just almost like scrapped things and wholesale redone? Like how many just kind of like reboots have you done of this game so far? You don't have to go into
Sure.
great detail, but I'm always curious about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen like the programmer confidence curve, which is kind of a joke, but it looks like a
Yes.
U because you're super confident when you get started. And as you go along, your confidence just plummets. And then after a while, when you really start learning what you're doing, your confidence goes back up, right? So I would say we're squarely on the lighter side of that, where confidence is going back up. We feel like we actually kind of know what we're doing. There were some low points. There were plenty of times where I'm like, I don't know if this is worth it anymore, man. Like, I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. It's a lot of extra hours outside of work, and there's if you're like on Reddit or wherever else looking for help, there's a lot of people who'll be like, not a good chance you'll succeed, right? Because there's so much competition out there. But I would say 7 years later, I have hit a lot of those low points, but now that we've come out of it, I really feel like we've found ways to make Emery its own game. And we have a lot of things worth being excited about, and we're actively building towards them every day. So we're looking forward to sharing we've definitely iterated on what has been shown at 2DCon in the past, because we've shown at 2DCon 3 times now, and I think this next time is going to be kind of a soft relaunch of sorts, because I feel like Emery has really grown into being more than a sequel of itself. Like, it's almost like Emery 3 at this point, but since we haven't released anything else, we're just calling it Emery. So yeah, lots of times for sure.
Just do the Layers of Fear thing. They're all the same game.
Yeah, right.
In fact, you know what?
No.
Maybe change the name. Maybe just instead of Emery, just call it Layers of Fear. And like, it's
Yeah,
all the
there
same
you go.
universe. Don't try to, let if the Five Nights at Freddy's people have taught me anything, just let the fans write the lore. Let them connect the dots.
Yeah.
It's
I
fine.
have to look into what they're doing
It's
there. I'm sure we can get some help.
It's fine. Chris, did you have
Yes,
something?
it definitely won't create more headaches in the long run.
No,
Absolutely
no,
not.
never not.
Yeah, what
Never
could go
not.
wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think we're really onto something here. But no, I went ahead and I went ahead and wish listed that and followed you on Twitter. I'm
Awesome.
looking forward to seeing updates and progress. And I was actually at 2DCon this year, and I missed it. I missed it.
No problem.
I-
Yeah, they kind of move us around every year. We're kind of like
Okay.
in the big arcade hall, whereas last year we were kind of like on the second floor and kind of in a ballroom or something. So that goes on the feedback form a little bit, but I know they're trying to take care of us. So I would hope that we can stay in that arcade hall moving forward, because it's just kind of a better environment for video games. I think the ballroom worked well for the indie tabletop games, so that people
Yeah.
can talk to each other. But we don't need that for video games, right? We can handle all the audio noise.
We don't play video games to talk to other people.
Right.
We do that to
yeah.
avoid people. Come on.
I've gotten so much feedback where it's like, you need to take all this dialogue out so I can just get right to the game. And I'm like, okay, fine. Just hit A and you're in.
I was going to ask, just knowing how you said the scene is kind of growing here in Minnesota, and it's one of the things that growing up here, I've always known, Game Informer exists here, and now they've branched, part of those folks have branched off and made Min-Max. But through Game Informer, I discovered Glitch as well. I know that you participate in Glitch. Have you noticed Glitch kind of growing with the Minnesota scene? Do you kind of see that those things kind of working off of each other?
Yeah, so my experience is so Glitch actually did publish another local game called Hyperdot, which is
Yep.
kind of like a Geometry Wars type game, but without the
I
shooting.
remember that ended up on like going on to Game Pass day
Yep.
one.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
got a lot of downloads from Game Pass. So that was
Yep.
great exposure for them. So they helped publish that, but I think since then, so about 3 years ago, since that launched, they've kind of pivoted more towards what they call their Moonrise Fund, which is kind of like an equity investment kind of fund. So I think they're looking to pivot themselves more to like investment and equity rather than traditional publishing models. And so I've had some conversations with them in the past, but obviously, we haven't entered into any partnerships like that. But they host a lot of community events too, right? Like they'll host game jams, which I regularly recommend as a starting point for anybody who's interested in picking up game development. Game jams are they're like short little 2-day or like a week long or however long short-term commitments where you scope out a project, you make it to the best of your ability in that short time frame, and then you're done, right? So you have a little game by the time it's all over. You had a chance to work on a small product from start to finish, and then no strings attached, no long-term commitments. You can walk away, shake hands with who you worked with or whatever, and on to the next thing, right? So that's a really great way to get like kind of like a low stakes introduction to the end-to-end process. So Glitch hosts a lot of things like that. They host like playtest events where they open their offices for developers to bring their game, and then just have strangers who are part of the community just come in and play it, and they'll let you know how they feel, right? Like strangers won't hold your they won't care about what they say makes you feel, right? So
Right.
So I mean, it's really good to get that raw feedback, right? So they're still active in the community as far as I know, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then there's the IGDA TC. So IGDA is the International Game Developers Association, which is like a worldwide association. We do have a Twin Cities chapter, IGDA TC. So I'd be remiss to not mention them. They host, I think 4, maybe it's just 3 monthly events, and they have a Discord server, so it's never been easier to kind of engage with them as well. So if anybody wants links or anything, just hit me up.
And if you are not in the Twin Cities area, IGDA has got chapters kind of all over the place. So check your local listings.
Yeah, and not just in the U.S., all over the world.
That's true. You can get more information about Emery and CrunchBox Games at emery.crunchboxgames.com. No information about .com there, but the other 2 words are covered on that website. And is there a way to check out any of the other games you've got kind of in the pipe, or are they still a little too early?
That's a good question. The website's in need of updating anyway, so we might throw some shout outs there. But I do have like a personal portfolio with links to like playable builds and stuff, so I'll make that easier to get. That's a good idea.
Okay, yeah, and we'll put those links in the show notes for this as well.
Otherwise,
so
we would always love to see everybody listening at 2DCon in August.
Yes, but that's a good few months away. So
I'm looking forward to going back. That was my first one, and I had a blast. I look forward to returning next summer.
Yeah.
Also, can't wait for summer.
Yeah, right.
What are you talking about? It's almost summer-like right now.
I know. It's the worst day
in Minnesota
to say
in
that
December.
when it's 50 in the middle of December.
Yeah.
But
yeah, global warming is
Still
not a
t-shirt
thing. Don't
weather.
worry about it. It's fine.
Yep.
Ryan, do you want to quick plug your website real quick?
Yeah, so it's Ryan RYAN-BLAHA-MN.carbonmade.com. So Carbonmade is like a portfolio platform, and so carbonmade.com is all of the portfolios in that domain, and then mine is just Ryan-Blaha-MN.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, we mentioned at the top of the show you are the newest MegaDad. What can people look forward to on the website of yours?
TBD.
TBD.
Yep, in big capital letters.
Okay. He's
right
so
now,
new. He's so new. We haven't even made him a cubby yet. So
that's right. No, I have some things pending in the non-MegaDads world that I'm waiting for confirmation on. It looks like I might be starting 2 new jobs in January because I am a go-getter. So that is throwing a wrinkle into a lot of things. But what I would love to do is still be available to kind of sit in on podcasts and help out in that regard. And then any more concrete stuff regarding MegaDads will have to come at a later date. So that's
All right.
Still in a holding pattern on that stuff, but still want to be here in this capacity.
Well, we'll just all sit here, just refresh megadads.org every couple hours, and eventually Chris will be there.
That'll do.
Fair. Well, on behalf of Chris and my now new good friend Ryan, although Chris is also a new good friend, we're making friends here.
Sure, it's because of your maturity.
Yes, it's because of my maturity. You are new, aren't you? Oh boy. Anyway, thank you guys for checking out this show. Thank you for being so patient while we were kind of working through our stuff here, and I'm hoping to get this show back on a more regular schedule in 2024. But in the meantime, keep checking out megadads.org for this content as well as all sorts of other stuff. I might be doing a review. We're still figuring it out. I was supposed to get into something, and we might not be able to get in anymore. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do a review anymore. So again, just refresh the website every couple hours, and all sorts of goodies will come your way. If you don't hear from me before then, have a great holiday, great New Year's, and just stay safe. Just stay inside, play games, talk to some friends. There's really not much else worth mentioning, honestly. Megadad's Checkpoint is powered by Pants and part of megadads.org, now appearing on page 3 when you search for Video Game Daddy.
Yeah, we love video games. If you hear me panting, that would be why.